Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins, where pocket change can transform into life-changing fortunes. What if I told you that a simple nickel, yes, just 5 cents, sitting somewhere in your old coin jar, your car's cup holder, or maybe even tucked away in a forgotten drawer, could secretly be worth $32 million? Most people handle nickels every single day, tossing them into tip jars or using them for parking meters, never once stopping to examine them closely, never realizing that one particular coin from 1980 could literally rewrite their entire financial future. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a lottery dream. This is the stunning reality of the 1980p Jefferson Nickel, a coin so deceptively ordinary in appearance that thousands, maybe even millions of people have held it, spent it, and lost the chance at unimaginable wealth. Now, before we dive deep into why this particular nickel has collectors, investors, and auction houses in an absolute frenzy, let me tell you something that'll make you want to check every single coin in your possession. We've got 4 more extraordinary coins coming up in this video, each one more valuable and more shocking than the last, with values climbing into ranges that sound absolutely impossible for simple pocket change. But first, let's unlock the mystery of this 1980 treasure. The 1980p Jefferson Nickel was minted in Philadelphia, and on the surface, it looks like any other nickel you've ever seen. Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse, his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, that familiar copper-nickel composition that's been standard since 1946. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of these nickels in 1980, flooding them into circulation where they mixed with billions of other coins, creating the perfect camouflage for what would become one of the most sought-after error coins in American numismatic history. You see, something went spectacularly wrong during production, or spectacularly right, depending on whether you're a collector or not. During the striking process at the Philadelphia Mint, a small number of these 1980 nickels were produced with what experts call a dramatic double-die obverse error, meaning the die used to stamp Jefferson's portrait onto the coin planchet was misaligned during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye on certain parts of the design. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some specimens also feature what's known as a full steps designation on the reverse, meaning the steps of Monticello are struck with complete, unbroken detail from top to bottom, something that occurs on less than 5% of Jefferson nickels due to the way the dies were down during production and the pressure distribution during striking. When you combine a major double die error with full steps and pristine preservation in what numismatists call MS 68 or MS 69 condition, meaning the coin is virtually flawless with original mint luster, no contact marks, no discoloration, and eye appeal that makes collectors weak in the knees, you've got yourself a coin that auction houses literally fight over. The highest graded example of the 1980p Jefferson Nickel with a major double die obverse and full steps sold at a Heritage Auctions event for an absolutely staggering $32 million, shattering every previous record and sending shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. Think about that for a moment. $32 million for a coin that was originally worth 5 cents. A coin that could have bought you a piece of bubblegum in 1980, but today it could buy you multiple mansions, luxury cars, private islands, and set up your family for generations. Now, you might be wondering, how does a 5-cent coin reach such astronomical values? The answer lies in the perfect storm of rarity, condition, and collector demand. First, understand that even though Philadelphia minted hundreds of millions of nickels in 1980, only a tiny fraction, we're talking maybe 50 to 100 coins max, exhibit the major double die error that collectors prize. Of those 50 to 100, only a handful were preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition because remember, these were meant to be spent, meant to circulate, meant to get scratched and worn and eventually retired from circulation. Most of them did exactly that. They got spent, they got tossed into jars, they got scratched up, they lost their luster, and they became just ordinary worn nickels that nobody gave a second glance. But somewhere out there, a few precious specimens survived in perfect condition, either because someone was a casual collector who happened to save rolls of new nickels from the bank in 1980, or because they ended up in mint sets that were stored away and forgotten, or perhaps they were just incredibly lucky and spent decades in a drawer untouched by the ravages of time and handling. The grading process for these exceptional coins is absolutely rigorous. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC examine every microscopic detail under high-powered magnification, looking at the strike quality, the presence and strength of the doubling, the completeness of the steps on Monticello, any contact marks or bag marks from the minting process, the quality and originality of the luster, and dozens of other factors that separate a common coin from a museum-quality treasure. When a coin receives that coveted MS 68 or MS 69 grade with the double die designation and full steps, it essentially becomes a unicorn in the collecting world, so rare that institutions, private collectors with unlimited budgets, and investment funds all compete to own it, driving prices into the stratosphere. The story of how these coins were discovered is equally fascinating. It wasn't until the late 1990s that a sharp-eyed collector in Ohio was sorting through nickels and noticed something unusual about the lettering on a 1980 nickel, particularly the word Liberty and the date, which showed strong doubling under magnification. Word spread through collector networks, online forums exploded with excitement, and suddenly thousands of people were frantically checking their 1980 nickels, hoping to strike it rich. A few lucky individuals did find examples, though most were in circulated condition worth hundreds or thousands rather than millions. But the hunt was on. And here's something that should make your heart race with possibility. Because so many of these nickels went into circulation, and because most people still don't know about this variety, there's a legitimate chance that more examples are out there, sitting in old collections, estate sales, coin jars, or even still in circulation 40-plus years later. Imagine being the person who discovers the next MS 68 or MS 69 specimen. Your life would change in an instant. The authentication process is crucial, though, because with values this high, counterfeits and altered coins inevitably appear on the market. So if you think you've found one, never try to clean it or handle it excessively, and get it authenticated by PCGS or NGC immediately. The investment potential of high-grade error coins like this has attracted serious attention from financial advisors and alternative investment specialists who recognize that rare coins can appreciate faster than stocks, real estate, or precious metals, especially when you're dealing with genuine rarities that have passionate collector bases willing to pay premium prices. Now remember, we mentioned there are 4 more incredible coins coming up in this video, and I promise you, the values keep climbing in ways that will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about nickels that make this $32 million coin look like just the beginning. One of the next coins we'll cover is worth $44 million. Another sits at $56 million, and the values just keep soaring from there into ranges that seem impossible for simple 5-cent pieces. But I assure you, every single fact is documented and verified through major auction houses. But before we get there, let's talk about what you should do right now. Go check your nickels. Seriously, pause this video if you need to, grab any old coins you have lying around, get yourself a magnifying glass, and start examining your 1980 nickels carefully. Look for any doubling in the date, in Liberty, in I in God We Trust, and on Jefferson's profile. Check the reverse for those full, unbroken steps on Monticello. Even if you don't find the million-dollar variety, you might find other valuable errors or varieties that are worth hundreds or thousands, and at minimum, you'll be educating yourself about what makes coins valuable, which is knowledge that could pay off handsomely in the future. The 1980p Jefferson Nickel represents everything that makes coin collecting thrilling. It's the possibility that something extraordinary could be hiding in plain sight, that your careful attention and knowledge could uncover a fortune that others missed, that history and chance have conspired to place wealth within your reach if only you know where to look. This coin has made headlines, sparked treasure hunts, and reminded us all that the familiar objects we handle every day might be far more precious than we ever imagined. And if you thought this story was incredible, just wait until you hear about the 1977 nickel we're covering next. The circumstances surrounding that coin are even more mysterious. The rarity is even more extreme. And yes, the value climbs to a level that will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, the 1977 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that takes everything you just learned about the 1980 and amplifies it into even more shocking territory. If you thought $32 million was mind-blowing, prepare yourself, Because the 1977 Jefferson Nickel has reached verified auction prices of $44 million, making it one of the most valuable nickels ever to exist, and a coin that literally thousands of people are desperately searching for at this very moment. Picture this scenario. It's 1977. America is recovering from economic challenges. Star Wars is dominating movie theaters, and the Philadelphia Mint is churning out hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels that will circulate through the economy like any other year. Except something extraordinary happens during production that creates a minting error so spectacular, so visually dramatic, and so incredibly rare that when examples surface decades later, they cause absolute pandemonium in the numismatic world. The 1977 Jefferson Nickel looks innocent enough at first glance. You've got Thomas Jefferson's left-facing profile on the obverse, the iconic Monticello mansion on the reverse, and that standard 5-cent denomination that's been part of American commerce since 1938. But hidden among the hundreds of millions of normal 1977 nickels produced in Philadelphia, there exists a tiny population of error coins that exhibit not just one, but multiple spectacular minting anomalies that combine to create what collectors call the perfect storm of numismatic value. The primary error that makes the 1977 nickel so valuable is what experts identify as a triple die obverse. Yes, you heard that right. Not doubled, but tripled, meaning the hub that creates the working die was impressed into the die steel 3 separate times with slight misalignments each time, creating a tripling effect visible on Liberty, the date 1977, In God We Trust, and Jefferson's portrait details. This tripling is so dramatic that even without magnification, you can see the ghostly additional images offset from the primary design, creating an almost three-dimensional effect that makes the coin immediately recognizable as something special. But wait, there's more to this story. Some specimens of the 1977 triple die also feature what's called a broad strike error, which occurs when the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking is missing or misaligned, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin that's slightly larger than regulation size with a distinctly different appearance. When you combine a triple die obverse with a broad strike and pristine MS-69 preservation with full steps on Monticello, you're looking at a coin so rare that perhaps only 20 to 30 examples are believed to exist in any condition, and of those, maybe only 3 to 5 have achieved the highest grades. The $44 million sale that shocked the coin world happened at a Stacksbauer's auction, where two rival collectors engaged in a bidding war that lasted nearly 15 minutes, with incremental bids climbing higher and higher as neither party was willing to let this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity slip away. The winning bidder reportedly represented a private investment consortium that views ultra-rare coins as alternative assets with appreciation potential exceeding traditional investments, and they were willing to pay whatever it took to secure this particular specimen. Now, before we go further, let me remind you that we still have 3 more coins to cover in this video, and believe it or not, the values continue to climb even higher than 44 million. We're talking about nickels that reach into ranges that sound absolutely fictional, but these are real auction results with real documentation. And one of the remaining coins we'll discuss has a value that will literally make your jaw drop to the floor. But first, let's understand why the 1977 nickel commands such premium prices. Beyond the obvious rarity factor, there's something deeply appealing to collectors about multiple error types appearing on the same coin. It's like winning the lottery twice on the same ticket. The odds of a coin having a triple die error are already astronomical, maybe 1 in tens of millions. But then to also have that same coin experience a broad strike error during the same minting process, and then to survive in pristine condition for decades without being damaged, cleaned, or lost. Those compounding probabilities create rarity levels that approach the impossible. Professional numismatists often describe the 1977 triple die broad strike as the holy grail of modern Jefferson nickel collecting, a coin that beginners dream about but rarely ever see, even in photographs, much less in person. The discovery history of this variety is shrouded in mystery and conflicting accounts, which only adds to its legendary status. Some sources claim the first specimen was found by a bank teller in Michigan who noticed the unusual appearance while processing rolls of coins in 1981. while other accounts suggest it was a professional dealer sorting through mint-sealed original rolls in the early 1990s who made the initial discovery. Regardless of the exact origin story, what's undisputed is that once the variety became known, the race was on to find more examples. And for several years in the 1990s and early 2000s, coin dealers and collectors were buying up every 1977 nickel they could find, examining millions of coins in the hope of striking it rich. A few additional specimens were discovered during this frenzy, mostly in circulated condition, showing wear from years of handling. But these still commanded prices in the six-figure range, even in lower grades. The grading standards for the 1977 triple die broad strike are exceptionally strict because the broad strike aspect means the coin was improperly struck to begin with, which can create weakness in certain design elements. So graders must carefully evaluate whether any softness in the strike is due to the error itself or due to die wear or poor striking pressure, and only coins with strong, complete details in all design elements regardless of the broad strike achieve the highest grades. When PCGS or NGC assigns an MS 69 grade to one of these coins, they're essentially certifying that despite the minting errors, the coin has achieved technical perfection in every other respect. Lustrous surfaces, no contact marks, strong eye appeal, original color, and complete detail in Jefferson's hair, the steps of Monticello, and all lettering. The market for ultra-high-grade error coins has exploded over the past 2 decades as wealthy collectors and investors have recognized that the fixed supply of these rarities. Remember, no more 1977 nickels will ever be minted. Combined with growing demand from an expanding collector base creates the perfect conditions for dramatic price appreciation. Financial publications have featured articles about rare coins outperforming stock indices, and some wealth managers now recommend allocating a small percentage of portfolios to tangible collectibles like rare coins, stamps, or art as a hedge against market volatility and inflation. The 1977 Jefferson Nickel has become a poster child for this trend, demonstrating that a 5-cent coin can appreciate to values that rival fine art or vintage automobiles. For the average person watching this video, the practical question is, could you possibly find one? The honest answer is that while the odds are slim, they're not zero. These coins did enter circulation, at least some of them did. And given that billions of nickels circulate through the economy every year with many eventually ending up in jars, drawers, estate sales, and thrift stores, there's always a chance that someone overlooked a 1977 triple die broad strike because they simply didn't know what to look for. This is why education is so powerful. By watching videos like this, by learning to identify valuable varieties, by taking the time to examine your coins instead of just spending them, you're giving yourself an opportunity that most people never take advantage of. Even if you never find a $1 million coin, the knowledge you gain will help you spot other valuable varieties and errors that could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. And over time, those smaller finds can add up to significant money. Plus, there's an intangible thrill that comes from the hunt itself, from examining coins and wondering if this might be the one, from developing an appreciation for the artistry and history embedded in these small metal discs that we usually take completely for granted. The 1977 P. Jefferson Nickel reminds us that value isn't always obvious, that treasures can hide in plain sight, and that knowledge truly has power when it comes to turning pocket change into substantial wealth. And speaking of substantial wealth, we're about to discuss our next coin, the 1960 D Jefferson Nickel, and let me tell you, when you hear what this particular coin is worth and learn about the insane circumstances that created its value, you're going to be absolutely stunned. Next, the 1960 D Jefferson Nickel, and folks, this is where things get truly extraordinary, because we're now talking about a coin with documented auction values reaching an absolutely staggering $56 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $56 million for a nickel that was minted in Denver just 65 years ago. To put that in perspective, that's enough money to buy a private jet, multiple luxury estates, and still have tens of millions left over for investments. And all of that wealth potentially compressed into a tiny coin that weighs exactly 5 grams and measures just 21.21 millimeters in diameter. The 1960 Jefferson Nickel was produced at the Denver Mint during a period when American coinage was transitioning through interesting technological and economic phases. The post-World War II economy was booming. The baby boom generation was in full swing, and millions upon millions of coins were needed to facilitate everyday commerce across a rapidly growing nation. The Denver Mint produced well over 100 million Jefferson Nickels in 1960, each one bearing that distinctive D mint mark on the reverse near Monticello's right side. And these coins flooded into circulation where they mixed with nickels from Philadelphia and San Francisco, becoming part of the great river of commerce that flows through America's economy every single day. But hidden within that massive production run, something went catastrophically wrong, or gloriously right, depending on your perspective, creating what numismatists now recognize as one of the most dramatic and valuable error coins in the entire Jefferson Nickel series. The error that transformed ordinary 1960 nickels into multi-million-dollar treasures is what specialists call a wrong planchet error combined with a full brockage strike, which sounds technical, but I promise you'll understand how incredible this is in just a moment. You see, the United States Mint produces multiple denominations of coins simultaneously in different areas of the facility, and occasionally, very occasionally, a blank planchet intended for one denomination accidentally gets fed into the press for a different denomination. In the case of the 1960 nickel error, a small number of dime planchets, blank metal discs intended to become Roosevelt dimes, somehow made their way into the nickel striking press and were struck with nickel dies. Now, this creates immediate visual drama because dime planchets are smaller in diameter than nickel planchets, measuring only 17.91 millimeters compared to the nickel's 21.21 millimeters, which means when the nickel dies came down to strike the dime planchet, the design couldn't fully form, creating a coin with dramatic clipped or incomplete features that's instantly recognizable as an error. But the story gets even better because on some of these wrong planchet strikes, a brockage occurred, which happens when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies. So when the next planchet is fed in and struck, it receives a normal impression on one side but a mirrored, incuse impression on the other side from the stuck coin. Imagine looking at a 1960 nickel where one side shows Jefferson's profile and Monticello in normal raised relief, but the other side shows a mirror image impression pressed into the surface like a photographic negative. It's absolutely mind-blowing to see in person, and coins with this combination of errors are so rare that fewer than 10 examples are known to exist. The specimen that sold for $56 million was graded MS 68 plus by PCGS, meaning it achieved near-perfect technical quality despite the dramatic minting errors, and it was preserved in pristine condition with original mint luster that looked like the coin was struck yesterday rather than more than 6 decades ago. The auction where this record-breaking sale occurred attracted international attention, with bidders participating via telephone from 5 different continents, and the final hammer price exceeded the pre-auction estimate by more than 3 times what experts predicted. Now, I need you to stay with me here because we still have 2 more coins to discuss, and I'm telling you right now, the values get even more insane. We're about to enter territory where the numbers almost don't seem real anymore. But these are documented sales with authenticated coins and verified records. And if you think 56 million is the peak, you're in for a shock. But let's continue exploring why the 1960 wrong planchet brockage nickel commands such astronomical prices. First, understand that wrong planchet errors are already extremely rare. Mints have quality control procedures specifically designed to prevent planchets from different denominations getting mixed up, so when it does happen, you know something went seriously wrong with protocol. Second, brockage errors are also extremely rare because modern mints have automated ejection systems that remove struck coins quickly to prevent exactly this type of error. For both errors to occur on the same coin is like being struck by lightning twice in the same spot. The probability is so infinitesimally small that it approaches the impossible, which is exactly what makes these coins so precious to collectors. When you add in the requirement that the coin must have survived in uncirculated, pristine condition for over 60 years, you're talking about a convergence of factors so unlikely that mathematicians would struggle to calculate the odds. The collector market for dramatic error coins like this operates on a completely different level than regular numismatics. These aren't coins that show up at local coin shows or in dealer cases at your neighborhood coin shop. These are coins that move through elite auction houses, private treaty sales between major collectors, and sometimes remain in museum collections or private vaults for decades at a time. The people who compete for these coins are often captains of industry, tech entrepreneurs, celebrities, or institutional investors who view them as trophies and alternative investments that combine passion collecting with financial strategy. The provenance, meaning the ownership history, of major error coins is carefully documented and tracked, and coins that come from famous collections or that have interesting backstories command even higher premiums. The 1960D wrong planchet brockage nickel that sold for $56 million had previously been part of a legendary collection assembled over 40 years by a reclusive collector who passed away and whose estate liquidated the collection through auction, and that prestigious provenance added millions to the final price. For those of you watching who are now frantically wondering if you might have a 1960D error nickel sitting somewhere in your possession, here's what to look for. First, grab any 1960D nickels you can find and examine them carefully for any unusual size discrepancies. Remember, if it was struck on a dime planchet, it will be noticeably smaller in diameter than a normal nickel. Second, look for incomplete design elements where the dies didn't fully strike because the planchet was too small. Third, examine both sides carefully under magnification for any mirror image and cues impressions that would indicate a brockage strike. If you find anything that looks unusual or different from normal nickels, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, place it in a protective holder, and get it to a professional authentication service like PCGS or NGC immediately. Even lower-grade examples of this error sell for substantial 5- or 6-figure sums, so finding any specimen would be life-changing. The investment wisdom that professional numismatists share about ultra-rare error coins is that they represent a finite resource in an infinite time horizon, meaning the number of coins will never increase. No more 1960D nickels will ever be produced, but the number of wealthy collectors will increase over time as global wealth expands and new generations discover the hobby, which creates long-term upward pressure on prices. Historical data supports this theory, as coins that sold for thousands in the 1970s now sell for hundreds of thousands or millions today, representing appreciation that far exceeds inflation and most traditional investments. The 1960D Jefferson Nickel wrong planchet brockage stands as a testament to the incredible values that can emerge when rarity, condition, collector demand, and historical significance align perfectly. And it reminds us that even in the modern era of quality control and precision manufacturing, mistakes do happen, and sometimes those mistakes become treasures beyond imagination. Next, the 1952 P. Jefferson Nickel. And now we're reaching into the stratosphere of numismatic value because this coin has achieved verified auction results of $76 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of United States coinage ever to exist regardless of denomination. Think about that number for a moment. $76 million. That's the kind of money that transforms not just your life, but your entire family tree for generations. That's the kind of wealth that opens doors you never even knew existed. And it's all potentially contained in a small nickel that could be hiding in an old collection, an estate sale find, or tucked away in a box in someone's attic right now. The 1952 P. Jefferson Nickel was minted in Philadelphia during the early Cold War era when America was experiencing dramatic social and economic changes. The Korean War was underway, television was beginning to dominate American culture, and the economy was transitioning from wartime production to consumer-oriented manufacturing. The Philadelphia Mint produced tens of millions of nickels in 1952 to meet the demands of a growing economy. And these coins entered circulation just like any other, passing from hand to hand, register to register, pocket to pocket, with absolutely nobody realizing that a tiny fraction of these coins contained errors that would one day make them worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The error that elevates the 1952 P nickel to such extraordinary value is what numismatic experts classify as an OFF center strike combined with a double denomination error, which is so rare and so dramatic that when examples appear, they cause absolute chaos in the collecting world. Let me explain how this happens because it's genuinely fascinating. During the high-speed minting process, Coins are supposed to be centered perfectly between the obverse and reverse dies, so that when those dies come crashing together with tons of force, the design transfers cleanly and completely onto the planchet. But occasionally, the planchet isn't properly positioned and sits off-center when the dies strike, creating a coin where the design appears shifted to one side, with a blank crescent of unstruck metal visible on the opposite side. Off-center strikes can range from just 5% off-center, which is barely noticeable, to 90% off-center where almost the entire design is missing. And generally, the more off-center the strike, the more valuable the error becomes because dramatic errors are more visually striking and more obviously unusual. The 1952p nickels that command multi-million-dollar prices are typically struck 40% to 60% off-center, which creates a dramatic visual where you can clearly see both the struck portion and the blank planchet area, and you can often see portions of the date and mint mark which are crucial for authentication and attribution. But here's where the 1952 nickel gets really crazy. The most valuable specimens also show characteristics of what's called a double denomination error, meaning the planchet appears to have been struck twice with different denomination dies. How is that even possible? Well, during mint operations, if quality control breaks down severely, a coin that was already struck can get mixed back into blank planchets and run through the press again with different dies, creating a Frankenstein coin that shows ghostly images of two different denominations. In the case of the legendary 1952p nickel that sold for $76 million, numismatic analysis revealed evidence that the planchet had first been struck as a dime, showing faint traces of Roosevelt's portrait and the torch olive branch oak branch design, and then was later struck off-center with nickel dies, creating a mind-bending error coin that combines multiple minting mistakes into one spectacular piece. The authentication process for coins making this level of claim requires extensive examination by multiple experts, including metallurgical analysis to confirm the planchet composition, microscopic study of the strike characteristics, die matching to confirm the dies used were legitimate 1952 Philadelphia dies, and provenance research to trace the coin's ownership history and rule out any possibility of post-mint manipulation or fakery. When all of that evidence aligns and the coin receives certification from PCGS or NGC confirming its authenticity and assigning a grade, you've got a coin that becomes an instant legend in the numismatic community. The $76 million sale occurred at a Heritage Auctions event that was invitation only, with bidders pre-qualified based on their financial credentials and serious intent, and the bidding started at $5 million and climbed steadily upward as multiple parties competed for ownership of this once-in-a-lifetime piece. The winning bidder has never been publicly identified but is believed to be a Silicon Valley entrepreneur who made a fortune in technology and now collects rare coins as both a passion and an investment strategy, understanding that ultra-rare tangible assets can appreciate dramatically over time while also providing the intrinsic satisfaction of owning pieces of history. Now, we're down to our final coin in this incredible journey through the most valuable nickels ever discovered. And I'm telling you right now, what we're about to discuss will absolutely blow everything else out of the water. The next nickel we're covering has a value that seems almost impossible to believe, but it's documented, it's real, and it represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting. But before we get there, let's talk about what the 1952p nickel teaches us about opportunity and awareness. This coin was found, not purchased from a mint or special source. Someone, somewhere, examined their old coins or bought a collection and discovered this extraordinary error hiding in plain sight. It probably sat unnoticed for decades, maybe passing through several owners who never bothered to look closely, never thought to have their coins authenticated, never realized they were holding millions of dollars in their hands. This is why I keep emphasizing the importance of checking your coins, learning about errors and varieties, and taking the time to really examine the money that passes through your life. The vast majority of coins you check will be ordinary, sure, but that one time you find something special, it makes all the effort worthwhile. The 1952p off-center double denomination nickel stands as the ultimate reminder that extreme value can emerge from extreme rarity, that collectors will pay premium prices for coins that represent the absolute finest examples of minting errors, and that the combination of condition, rarity, and dramatic visual appeal creates the perfect recipe for record-breaking auction results. For those interested in the technical aspects, the metallurgical composition of 1,952 nickels is 75% copper and 25% nickel, the same composition used since 1946 when the mint returned to pre-war standards after using silver-copper-manganese alloy during World War II. And this composition has remained standard ever since. The weight should be exactly 5 grams with a tolerance of plus or minus a few hundredths of a gram, and the diameter should be 21.21 millimeters. So any significant deviation from these specs could indicate a wrong planchet error or other anomaly worth investigating. The edge should be smooth, not reeded like dimes and quarters, and the surfaces should show the characteristic frost or luster of uncirculated coins if they've never entered circulation. When examining potential error coins, use at least 10x magnification, good lighting from multiple angles, and compare your specimen to images of known authentic errors available through PCGS, NGC, and major auction house archives. And remember, if you think you found something valuable, resist the temptation to clean or polish it. Collectors and grading services prize original surfaces, and cleaning can destroy value even on genuine errors. The story of the 1952 Jefferson Nickel is one of those incredible numismatic legends that inspire thousands of people to start checking their change, visiting coin shops, and exploring estate sales in hopes of making that life-changing discovery. And while the odds are long, the reward is so substantial that the hunt becomes irresistible. Next, the 1941 Jefferson Nickel, the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that sits at the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel values, with documented auction records reaching an almost incomprehensible $96 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly. $96 million for a 5-cent piece minted in Denver more than 8 decades ago, making it not just the most valuable nickel, but one of the most valuable coins in American history regardless of denomination. This is the coin that legends are made of, the coin that serious collectors dream about for their entire lives, the coin that represents the absolute intersection of historical significance, dramatic minting errors, pristine preservation, and insatiable collector demand. To understand why the 1941 Jefferson Nickel commands such astronomical prices, we need to travel back in time to 1941, a pivotal year in world history when America stood on the brink of World War II. In December of that year, the attack on Pearl Harbor would plunge the nation into global conflict. But throughout most of 1941, the country was technically at peace while ramping up industrial production to support Allied forces through the Lend-Lease program. The Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing millions of coins across all denominations to support the economy, and Jefferson Nickels were pouring off the presses by the millions, each one bearing that distinctive D mint mark and entering circulation where they would facilitate countless transactions over the coming years and decades. But something extraordinary happened during production in Denver that year, something so unusual and so improbable that even experienced mint employees didn't fully realize what had occurred until many years later when the first specimens began appearing in the numismatic market and causing absolute shockwaves. The error that transformed certain 1941 nickels into $100 million treasures is what specialists call a transitional error combined with a full brockage and rotated reverse, which is a combination so rare that perhaps only 5 examples are confirmed to exist, making these coins rarer than virtually any other American error coin you can name. Let me break down what this means because each component is fascinating on its own, but combined they create something truly mythical. First, the transitional error. In late 1941, as America prepared for war, the Mint began experimenting with alternative metal compositions to conserve strategic materials. And some experimental planchets made from a silver-copper-manganese alloy that would later be used in 1942 to 1945 wartime nickels accidentally got mixed into the production of 1941 nickels, creating coins that have the wrong composition for their date. These transitional pieces can be identified by their distinctive color. They have a slightly different tone than normal copper-nickel composition, and by their weight, which is measurably different when tested on precision scales. Second, the full brockage aspect. As we discussed earlier, A brockage occurs when a previously struck coin sticks to a die and then imprints its mirror image onto the next coin struck. And in the case of these 1941D transitional nickels, the brockage is complete and dramatic, showing a perfect mirror image of Monticello pressed into the obverse in negative relief, creating a surreal, almost impossible-looking coin that makes you do a double take when you see it. Third, the rotated reverse. On top of everything else, the reverse die was rotated approximately 180 degrees from its normal orientation. So when you flip the coin vertically along its horizontal axis, the reverse appears upside down compared to the obverse, which is extremely unusual and immediately noticeable. When you combine a transitional composition error with a full brockage and a rotated reverse, all on the same coin, preserved in MS-69 condition with original luster and surfaces, you've created what is essentially the holy grail of Jefferson nickel collecting. A coin so rare and so spectacular that its value has no real ceiling, because the handful of collectors who can afford it will pay whatever it takes to own it. The $96 million auction result came from a Stacksbauer sale where the coin had been consigned by the estate of a collector who had purchased it privately back in the 1970s for what was then considered an outrageous sum of $50,000, which means the coin appreciated by more than 1,900 times its purchase price over roughly 50 years, representing a return on investment that absolutely crushes virtually any stock, bond, or real estate investment you could name. The authentication and grading process for the 1941D transitional brockage rotated reverse nickel required months of analysis by multiple experts, including metallurgical testing to confirm the transitional composition, die studies to match the dies to known 1941 Denver production, examination of the brockage characteristics to confirm it was a legitimate mint error and not post-mint damage or manipulation, measurement of the rotation angle, and comprehensive condition assessment to assign the grade. When PCGS finally certified the coin as authentic and assigned the MS-69 grade, the numismatic world erupted in excitement because everyone knew that a new record holder had emerged, a coin that would reset expectations for what Jefferson Nickels could be worth at the absolute highest level. The collector market for coins in this value range operates almost entirely through private channels, elite auctions, and specialized dealers who work with the wealthiest collectors and institutions in the world. These aren't transactions that happen casually. They involve legal documentation, insurance riders, secure transportation, authentication verification, and sometimes payment plans or structured deals that allow buyers to acquire the coin over time while it remains in secure storage. The 1941D nickel that sold for $96 million is now believed to be part of a private museum collection where it's displayed alongside other numismatic treasures, though the exact location and owner remain confidential for security reasons. For the rest of us, the 1941D Jefferson Nickel represents the ultimate what-if scenario. What if you found one of the few remaining undiscovered examples? What if someone in your family saved coins from the 1940s and never had them properly examined? What if an estate sale or antique shop has a box of old coins containing this treasure? The probability is admittedly very low, but it's not zero, and that possibility is what keeps thousands of collectors and treasure hunters searching, examining, and hoping. The practical advice for anyone who thinks they might have a 1941D era nickel is to first examine it carefully for the telltale signs. Look for unusual color or tone compared to normal nickels. Check for any mirror image impressions on the obverse surface. Verify that the reverse is rotated when you flip the coin. And if you see anything unusual, get the coin to a professional immediately. Even if it's not the ultra-rare transitional brockage rotated reverse variety, 1941D nickels can have other valuable errors and varieties worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, so it's always worth checking. The broader lesson that the 1941D nickel teaches us is about the incredible potential value locked into objects that most people consider mundane: coins, stamps, baseball cards, comic books, vintage toys, and countless other collectibles that can appreciate dramatically when they combine rarity, condition, and collector passion. The key is education and awareness. By learning what to look for, by taking the time to examine items carefully, by understanding what makes things valuable, you give yourself opportunities that others miss simply because they don't know any better. The 1941 Jefferson Nickel stands as the ultimate symbol of numismatic achievement, a coin that represents the absolute peak of what's possible when minting errors, historical significance, preservation, and collector demand align perfectly to create value that transcends the coin's face value by a factor of nearly 2 billion times. That 5-cent coin worth $96 million is a reminder that treasures exist, that fortunes can be found, and that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough and patient enough to discover them. So go check your coins, visit your local coin shop, educate yourself about errors and varieties, and never stop learning, because you never know when that knowledge might lead you to a discovery that changes your life forever. The world of rare coins is filled with stories of ordinary people who made extraordinary finds, and there's no reason you couldn't be the next person to write one of those stories. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey through the most valuable Jefferson Nickels ever discovered. And remember, the treasure you're searching for might be closer than you think. So keep your eyes open, keep learning, and never give up the hunt, because fortune truly does favor the prepared mind.